Holy mother of pearl, I didn't even see you sitting there. I just regurgitated my mouth full of beer there. Oh, speaking of which, speaking of regurgitation, that reminds me, episode 3, guide flies. This week is going to be the Puke Fly. Nice segue, eh? So, the Puke Fly was invented by Ian James and one of his young fishing buddies. I think his name was Willie. He's a 6-year-old. They were fishing for bass, and Willie got a decent sized bass. But as he was bringing it in, it was regurgitating, just like I did with my beer, regurgitating a whole bunch of half-digested minnows. And the bass that were following him, which happened to be quite a bit bigger, were gathering up those regurgitated minnows. I know it sounds gross, but that's an easy meal for them. And so they decided to come up with a fly, and they did. The fly looks like a regurgitated minnow. It's pretty much all white, and it moves around a little bit, some fibers coming off of it like it's half digested. And the Puke Fly, while not world-renowned, is very well known in southern Ontario. The rivers around here are just loaded with smallmouth, and this fly works really, really well. There's only 2 materials on this fly: rabbit fur and bead chain. The bead chain is the eyes, the rabbit fur is the body and the tail. So quite an easy tie, quite a cheap tie, therefore it's a guide fly. And it also works like a charm. Not only have I caught smallmouth on it, but I've caught rainbow trout, brown trout, northern pike, articulated versions a little bit longer, take a little bit longer to tie too, but it's worth it. I've caught walleye in the river. It's the best river walleye fly that I know of. And I catch a lot of them in the reservoirs as well. So it's a good all-rounder, and so I think we'll get to tying it. The thing that you have to remember when you're fishing this fly, especially in the river, is it's supposed to imitate a regurgitated minnow. So to move it like a fully healthy minnow doesn't always work. It seems to work on walleye, I don't know why. But on every other fish, dead drifting it, letting it tumble through the current, it seems to work the best that way. And that's why the rabbit fur is such a great material for it, because the rabbit fur moves around as it tumbles in the current. There's a similar fly called a Shank Minnow, I think it's called. I think the guy that invented it or came up with that pattern was Ed Shank out of Pennsylvania. And it's got a marabou tail, and it has a wool body that's sort of trimmed to a minnow shape. It, for some reason, it just doesn't, to me, doesn't look like a dead minnow. You pretty much have to give it the movement by tucking it through a pocket or a hole or a pool of some sort. So I just find the Puke Fly, if you're trying to imitate the aftermath of a feeding frenzy, which happens quite often in the mornings and at dusk, then the Puke Fly is the one to go with. So without further ado, and it looks like winter's trying to be winter again. Hopefully it sticks around, we can get some hard water, but while it's snowing out, that's when I like to tie. So let's go tie some Puke Flies as soon as I finish this beer. Cheers. The original Puke Fly was designed on a Mustad 3399 hook, and that's what I still use. Choose any heavy wire, short shank, streamer, or nymph hook. I'm using a Uni 6/0 thread, in this case white, to match the fly color. You don't want to go lighter because you're going to be tying down bead chain, which can have some sharp edges. Build a pad of several layers of thread where you'll be tying in the bead chain eyes. This helps seat them in place. Using a pair of wire cutters, cut a pair of beads from the chain. Bead chain is what your sink and bathtub stoppers hang from. If you don't have any, you can get it at a hardware store. Rather than alternating on the cross wraps, I like to wrap a few times in one direction and then switch over in the other direction to straighten the eyes out. It's the best method I've found for solid eyes without the use of glue. Select the longest hairs from the pelt for the tail. I use a lot of white rabbit fur, so I bought the whole pelt, but you can use rabbit strips if you'd like. Cut off a generous hank of fur. For this size 6 fly, I used about a 1/2 to 3/4 inch pencil thickness. The tail length is up to you, but I like to tie it in at up to 1.5 of the shank length. This gives me the option to tear it to length on the water as conditions dictate. This is where it gets fun. Start tearing off lots of fur to dub the body. Unlike other flies, you can lay on the dubbing heavy and shaggy. You'll want all the under fur and the guard hairs in your dubbing loop. Looks like I'll need just a little bit more to finish the head. Now just a whip finish and the tying part is done. Now you want to tease out all that long hair that you just dubbed in. I have a toothbrush that I cut the bristles short on for a dubbing brush. Often, I'm still not getting the shagginess I desire, so I'll use the bodkin to tease out some of the longer fibers. After that, I'll follow up with the dubbing brush just to make it look pretty. And there you have it. You're fully dressed, ready for action, Puke Fly. If you have any questions, use the comments section as I try to respond to everyone. Make sure you hit the like icon, if you like the video, to get notice of all of my videos. Make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching.